on behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight, welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
It's another great day, and what makes it great is that I get to hang out, at least electronically, with one of my favorite people. She's Chief Master Sergeant Karmann-Monique Pogue, who is a space person now. I think I met you when you were a staff sergeant. You were yelling at me at some dining in or something that I was speaking
something or
at.
another, right?
Yeah.
Something or another. When I was an airman, I'm now a guardian, which is
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes. And I told you back then, you hang with the chief and you'll get promoted. And here you are, a chief, at a MATCOM level chief in Space Force and all that stuff. So you've done pretty well, I guess. And I'm sure you read the book 5 or 6 times.
I've skimmed through it a few times, maybe once.
Yeah, okay. Well, with someone else that's on the program, we talked about mentoring. And I don't know that I've done that very well for you, but every once in a while when I can find you, because you're a pretty hard person to find, I try to do my best. So anyway, Chief, you are originally from Tucson, I think, right? Arizona?
Tucson, from the south side of Tucson, Arizona. So
yeah. Now, is that the good side or is that the not so good side?
I would say it's where you're going to find the best comida. So,
Yes.
right, it's where you're going to find all the good food. It's where my family's been for almost 300 years, and it's my favorite part of town.
Yeah, wow. That's a long time. And it's a dry heat.
It is a dry heat, except in the summertime when those monsoons roll through, and they quench that parched desert to ensure the saguaros are good to go to continue their growth and make sure that the wonderful Sonoran Desert is taken care of.
Yes, indeed. Well, again, thank you for taking time, and welcome to the show. Now, how long have you been a chief? You made chief in the Air Force, and then you transferred over to space, right?
Yeah, I was selected for chief in the Air Force in 2019, but I promoted as a chief in the Space Force. So that is something that I love to own. A little part of Space Force history, myself and my fellow sister chief, Taryn Stiles, we were the first 2 to put on chief stripes in the United States Space Force. So that is kind of my little piece of Space Force history that I like to own. Yeah. So I've only ever known wearing my chief stripe as a guardian.
All right. Wow. Well, that's pretty good. Now, and as I understand, you correct me if I'm wrong, but if I got this right, like 90% of the guardians were airmen, right? They all transferred.
I would say the preponderance of the guardians that were, as we stood up the Space Force, that were space systems operators. So the Air Force AFSC of 1 Charlie 6s and our officer counterparts, 13 Sierras, we were the first to kind of come over and put blue name tapes on. Our previous lives as airmen in those AFSCs no longer exist in the active duty Air Force. They still exist with our guard and our reserve teammates, but not on the active duty side. So
interesting.
Yeah, it was. I always say we all have a choice, but when your AFSC no longer ceases to exist, right? I want to say we all had a choice, but the choice was we kind of knew where we were going at this point.
Right. And so far, it's been a pretty good, I think, from what I can gather, a decent transition. There's always issues you got to deal with and all that. Like, where's my office? Well, it's over there. Oh, shoot, I forgot. I thought it was over here.
Well, you know what? Here's what's really cool, right? I've been saying for the last 4 years, we've had the opportunity to stand up a new service, which hasn't been done since, the Air Force since 1947. And so to be able to make history every single day in this 21st century environment, to defend a domain that hasn't really been talked about, that I would say the American public, sometimes our sister service teammates, don't really understand how critical space really is to our American, our global way of life. And Guardians of the United States Space Force, we have a critical role in protecting and defending that space environment into and from space, right? That's our motto. That's what we have. Indeed. That is our job.
Very cool. Well, I tried to get you to adapt my motto for you, and that's that space is the place.
Heck yeah.
That's like a cooler motto, but consider that. Tell the general I said that, okay?
I'll pass it on.
All right. Well, as we're here to talk about lesson number 7 of my book, So You Want to Be the Chief, which is just say no, which is, although it doesn't you know, when I wrote the book, it was more for airmen because that we didn't have space at the time. But it doesn't matter what kind of chief, even in the civilian world, just say no, I think is important because not enough people do it. And I think as professionals, chief, especially, you know, I was taught to be a workaholic. You know, I don't know that I started that way. I don't think I was, but eventually I was trained up to be an alcoholic. And it's like right now with technology. One of the most important things to do is get rid of the technology on the weekends, on your holidays, and all that kind of stuff. But we don't do that, you know. And when I was on active duty, even when I was teaching at the Air Force Academy, I kept my phone with me. Although I did make a promise to Simon Sinek one time that I would never carry my phone with me when I'm with Deb, my lovely bride of 45 wonderful, fulfilling years. And to this day, I'm living up to it. So, Simon, if you're listening, I hope give me some thumbs up because pat on the back.
So, Chief, something I did over the holidays, I took leave.
What?
And
What
took
is
leave.
that? What's
Yeah,
leave?
no.
I don't understand. That's the L word, man.
Right. And I put on my outbox, right? You're out of office. I am intentionally disconnected from my email. I will not be answering, looking at, or responding to email until I return to the office on this date. And I didn't. I didn't take my laptop. I didn't take my phone. I didn't take a single electronic device that tied me to work. And it was liberating. Now, mind you, in the back of my mind, I said no, right? When we talk about just saying no and being tied to work, I told my boss that, boss, you're not going to hear from me unless it's absolutely critical. You can text me and I will answer. You can call me and I will answer. But I said, I'm not responding to emails. And then when I got back to work, right, I paid the price. I knew in the back of my mind, the worry, right, was there. It's all going to be there. It's going to be piled up. And I know I'm going to have to attack it. And yeah, it was there. But you know what? My response back to everybody, they saw my out of office and saying I'm intentionally disconnected was, I didn't say I'm sorry. I said, thank you for your patience and allowing me to get back to you.
Very good.
And it was and right when saying no, I think it's more as leaders and not saying no and saying, thank you for respecting my time. Thank you for respecting on how I don't like to say that we balance work and family, because when you balance something, right, something's off kilter. Something's going to fall. You're going to go, what have I done here, right? You're going to have to rebalance. So I always like to say there's a harmony to how we wear our many hats or many roles, and whether that's in our professional or our personal life. And so it's about that harmony, and thank you for respecting me as I take the time to get back to you. And it was really nice, and folks understood that, oh, I really hoped you enjoyed your time off. What a wonderful way to prioritize, right, your family over work during the holiday season. I really hope you had a great holidays. And it was really liberating to be able to put that out there to say, nope, I'm not doing this right now.
But that's difficult, Chief. You know, it is. I think we all know that it is liberating. There's a huge value in it, but it's hard often to do it. And again, especially if you've been trained up to not say it, you know, and most of us, especially by the time you're a chief, you're expected to carry out. I don't know if you remember, we used to call it a brick because it looked like a brick. It was a huge thing, it looked like a brick, and you would carry that thing around with you all the time because you never knew.
iPhones, right? I've got two phones now.
Right. Well, and I've got an Apple Watch. My Apple Watch can do it for me, so it's the same difference. But it is a matter of respecting others' time with their families, and that's usually it. Their families by themselves and all that, and respecting ourselves. You know, because we think we can keep going. And, you know, oftentimes, you know, we say that burnout is all of a sudden I burned out. No, you were burning out a long time ago. You just didn't realize it.
Exactly.
You just got to the point where you couldn't deal with it anymore, you know. And that's, you know, we have classes, I know, and books and everything written on resilience. I call it proactive resilience. If you do the right things to begin with, you never get there. You know, and because resilience by definition is when you're bouncing back. Well, try to bounce forward so that you don't have to bounce back. But again, it's kind of difficult sometimes to say, no, I'm not, like you just said, I'm not here. Sorry, ask somebody else. But I think that's a good point, though. Thank you. Pass it on to someone. You know, in the next lesson or two, we'll talk with Chief Sanchez about get out of the way. and it's kind of the same thing, but you can't get out of the way unless someone is going to take over. And I think as a chief, you got to make sure that the people, you can go take time and you should take time, but they need to carry on the mission because someone's got to do it. It's not like it stops. We don't call the enemy, we don't call China and say, hey, we're not going to be around for
Hey,
this
I'm not
week.
gonna read it, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
stop what
no
you're
wars.
doing.
Yeah, this for the next 2 weeks, no wars. See you later. But that doesn't work that way. So that's, I think, part of that. When we say no, we have to make sure that everything is covered.
Definitely. And I think that goes with communicating, right? Your intent. And that goes with something you and I kind of touched before we met, that disrespect and respecting, right? It's about establishing those boundaries, not only with your command team partner, right? But with the rest of your team. And when I say team, those that you wear the uniform with and those that you're home with, so they understand.
Yeah.
It's not the disrespect back to my husband and my girls as we're on leave and they're looking at me like, Mom, why are you on email? Why are you not present with us in the moment? Because they've called me out on that, right? And that is a disrespect to them.
Yeah.
And you wrote about that in the book, right? About, are you there present for those moments in your family's life, or are you missing them because you're so focused in on, I can't say no and I have to do this. And so I get those gentle reminders from my husband of almost 22 years, Shane,
Yeah.
right? Of, hey, hey, is it about your guardians today, or is it about the team? Is it about the family here today?
Yeah.
And that's a quick, oh yeah, I need to get my act together here in the
Yeah.
role that I'm present here right now.
Yeah. And my sense, Chief, is that when you do like what you just did during the holidays, and do it purposefully, intentionally, the more you do it, then the guilt of doing it isn't as bad.
Oh God,
Because
no.
and it's like you're just mentioning balance. I see balance. My perspective on balance is like a balance beam. If you've ever been on one, you don't just walk the beam straight up. It goes this way and that way, and you move a little bit, you change it a little bit. That's how
Yeah.
life is. That's how you strike balance. You stay on the beam, but you're adjusting constantly all the time. So if you ensure that you take time from work to be with your family often enough, it won't, you won't feel the guilt, because I think it is guilt. Like what you were just explaining, in the back of your head, you're thinking, who's calling me? And it could be the president. I know you, Chief, and the president might call you. He won't call me because I'm too old, but you, Carmelita, get here. It's something like that. But
No, I think it aligns, right? We talk about I was an airman for 20 years and now I'm coming on almost just a little over 3 years as a guardian. And Shane and I, my husband, were having a conversation. He's a retired airman, right? He did it for 22 years as an airman. We were talking about our Space Force values, right? Of commitment, courage, character, and connection, and establishing those and living through the values. And I said, it reminds me. He goes, well, how do you know, right? You didn't grow up with these. And I said, I have to own them right now as a chief. I'm one of 61 chiefs in the Space Force. That's how small we are, right? We're a service of just over 14,000. And trying to embody those as we say no to things and show how I'm living through those, and the commitment, right? The commitment to mastery of the role that I've taken on, and saying yes. And naturally, I joked with a fellow chief, in fact, Chief Master Sergeant James Zabias, another Space Force chief, and who's another, right, protege, mentor, friend, you name it.
yes, yeah,
We have a connection. The three of us all have a connection. I said inherently it's something I'm working on, right? My people pleasing skills. It's just, call it first daughter, call it first gen, call it whatever you want. It's who I am, and I'm working on that to not always say yes, um, and not and learn to say no to certain things. And my new exec was telling me that as this '06 who's retiring was coming up to me and saying, Chief, you're going to be at my retirement ceremony, right? And the people pleaser came out really quick, and I was like, yes, sir, I'll be there. We've known each other a long time. I'd love to be there to celebrate you. And he gave the date, and my exec looks over, and after he had walked away, and she goes, no, Chief, you're not going to be there. Quit saying yes to things. And so, right, it can be as big as the things to the task that your commander, your command team partner, your team is asking you to do, to those small moments where people are just asking you to be present for some of those events that may matter to them. But the people pleaser in you comes out, because that's just, I think, something ingrained in us, right? To want to please everybody, to problem solve, to be there for them, right? Because we never want to let them down.
And as a leader, Chief, I think we have to be respectful of our followers, that they can't. I think in my email when I invited you to do this this podcast, I said this is not a loyalty test. If you can't, I understand. No, we would talk about you. Say, yes, and I would talk about you all, forever. But well, you could get over that, I think, probably, possibly. But
No,
anyway,
I'd have some guilt somewhere in here.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a good leader will ensure, and you can't do this. You cannot ensure that your followers feel safe. You can't. They either do or they don't. But it's an environment that you create. Yeah, I know Jake Simmons, another protege, another friend. We were supposed to get together today, but he's got stuff going on and all that. And he wrote me, Chief, I can't do it because, okay, you don't have to, you don't have to give me any reasons. You can't do it. We're okay. We'll do it some other time. We're okay. But, if we expect people to be there, especially, oh, look at who I am. How are you not going to be at my retirement? And with all due respect, I don't know who the colonel is. I invite you because I care and you're part of my family. But if you can't make it, you can't make it. I understand. So, I think that's part of leadership, because our followers are going to expect that we expect them to be there, and they shouldn't do things beyond what they can. My mom's coming in to the airport at the same time. Well, I guess I'll get somebody else to go get my mom.
Right?
No,
No.
take care of your mom. I want you to take care of your mom.
Yeah.
You're just going to be a spectator, and so I think there's that part too. So the key there is, again, intention. Do it. Make sure that you're doing it because you should do it, so you can take care of yourself, so that you're not, burning
Definitely.
out and all the other
think
things.
that's a true reflection. I'll use another, right? I'm going to use a guardian value, our character and how we present ourselves, right? And doing what is right. To use another guardian value, right? Our courage, and having the courage, like you talked about, or you just alluded to that, Chief, and going back, the courage to to do what's right.
Yeah.
Right. It may not always feel right, and you feel you're letting somebody down, or there's some guilt there, or am I balancing or harmonizing with that teammate, my family, you name it, right? It takes a little bit of that.
Yeah.
It's hard, right?
Yes.
Leading isn't easy. This is not easy. What we do is not easy. But when you lean in and you talk through, and you become vulnerable and transparent, and not saying, I got this all right. I am impenetrable. I'm not vulnerable to anything. I think that's kind of a ding going back on your character and how you lead, and how you present yourself,
Yeah.
whether it be in your personal or your professional life.
Yeah. And eventually, Chief, it becomes your identity.
Right?
Eventually you do it because it's you. And having done the right things, then that becomes a right you, if there's such.
Yeah,
I think I just
exactly.
coined something. Well, I'll have to write that down. But another part of saying no, Chief, that especially you, because, and I'm an old guy, I grew up a little bit differently than you did, but saying no to what happens sometimes in the workplace in particular. And I'm talking about sexual harassment. And it really is, I was at the academy for about 20 years, and we talked about sexual harassment all the time. And I kept saying that's a symptom of the problem, which is lack of respect. I think that's the key, lack of respect, which goes back to character, which is one of your values. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, we got to deal with the symptom. Again, back in my day, we said some stuff in the shop, and did some stuff in the shop that now we'd go to jail for. And we didn't do it intentionally to disrespect anyone. We just didn't know any better. But nowadays, you got to be careful, especially as a chief, I think. Not so much that you're, what is it, politically correct, but that you're respectful. Don't say things you shouldn't. And if you do, first apologize and correct it, because again, we've been brought up in different parts of the world, different cultures. We want to be respectful and treat, and I hope in our relationship, Chief, that I've treated you like my little sister. No one would ever hurt you, not when I'm around, because I would kill them. And I know that I'm ruggedly handsome, but you ought to see me in orange. I am good looking in orange. Mira, caliente.
Oh my goodness. No, right? Even, let's see, I've been doing this for 24 years now. And the Air Force that I came into is very much different than the Space Force that I have the great honor, right, to be a part of right now. And the generational shifts and changes in what our newest airmen and guardians have been exposed to, um, believe in, have been brought up in, and are leading in, right? Not globally, what we value now in our teammates, how we respect the changes, right, that we have made across the DAF and within our services, the DoD. It's incredible and it's wonderful. What I would say is, I always say, Chief Tobias has talked about the platinum rule, right? It's not the golden rule; it is the platinum rule, and he shared that with me this week. And sometimes I think it is about calling out those toxic behaviors, those toxic words. And sometimes, as much as the apologies, like, my bad, I'm sorry I said those things, it's about recognizing and correcting those behaviors, and it's not tolerating them anymore, because we are not. If we accept that toxicity and those negative behaviors, they are going to be a detriment to how we get after the threats, how we get after great power competition, how we become more lethal as warfighters, and how we synergize and sync our efforts in the Department of Defense, in the Air Force, and in the Space Force. How we know we can trust our teammates, right? How am I going to know that if you're going to disrespect me in the work environment, how am I going to know at the time of war I'm going to have the trust to lean in on you when I'm going to need you there by my left or my right side, right? So I think that we have proven that those generational shifts in what has become acceptable, what is not acceptable, and how we've tied that to our resiliency and our readiness is critically important. And it's recognized. It's just one of those things, right? Back in the day, to having a good haircut and making sure your uniform was tight and your boots were shined and polished. Now that presentation of coming in, of having a respectful attitude and presentation and words matter, is just as critically important to how you present yourself physically, right? I think that is critically important to how we are ready to get after those threats that are right around the corner here.
Yeah. And as a chief, I'll say we, I still consider myself a chief. I'm still
Once a
wearing
chief, always a chief, right?
Although now they're starting to call me the old chief, which I'm kind of worried about. But anyway, as the chief, you have to be the point where it stops, right? Like you said, one of your core values is courage. How many times, and I think this is natural, something happens and you say, I should have fixed that. I should have done something about it, and I didn't. Well, I think in particular as a chief, you better. It's incumbent upon you to fix that. Don't let it go, because the more you let it go, the more it festers, the worse it becomes, and eventually it's part of the culture. Yeah, we can use that the F word. It's okay to use the F word around here because it's part of our culture. Well, is that respectful? I think most of us would say no. Well, then why would you do it? Well, the chief lets us. In fact, the chief is the one that does it all the time.
Right.
Chief, that how we learn is really by watching. We watch,
Definitely, right?
the chief, we watch the supervisor, we watch the generals, and our followers may not do what we say, but they're going to do what we do. And before you know it, they're all doing it. If it's a bad thing, not a good thing.
That core value that we have of courage, right? It's courage to be bold. And it's not only about me as the chief and stopping the behavior, but empowering every airman and guardian that is in our formations, right? To empower them, regardless, to call out those behaviors, right? To stand up for what is right, to call out those negative behaviors. I think that the Space Force just recognized its Polaris winners, right? The 4 guardians across the entire service. And it's not, we don't do these awards based upon rank, and they're not categories. It's just, we nominate guardians regardless of whether they're civilian or military, officers or enlisted. And they go in front, these packages go into a centralized board at the Space Force in the Pentagon, and we grade these, and we a team of officer, enlisted, and civilian guardians sit down and go through these packages, and we kind of take a look at how these guardians lived up to the core value. How did they embody our guardian values? And one of them being courage, right? And the guardian that won this year was incredible in how she, Captain Samantha Pereira, really was steadfast to stand up what was right for her team. And we talk about truly living the values. She did that, and it was recognized. And so, right, it's an incredible thing that we're doing now in the Space Force, and I really love that we do that. And that's part of those what we talk about, right? The discrimination, the ensuring folks, they're calling folks out on the bad behavior. And so for me as a chief, that's part of it. She was empowered by her chiefs, by her leaders, to do what is right, to have the courage.
And the culture, again, is going to be molded by everyone, and in particularly the senior leaders. So definitely, I would suggest, and I think this is where you're going, Chief, and if it's happening, that's great, that we are empowered, that your followers are empowered to correct people all the way up.
All the way up and down.
You know, the general, if and you know, you heard my spiel at the Air Force Academy. I used to tell those cadets, if I'm ever about to do something wrong or you know, dumb, stop me. Because I don't want to do that, but I may not know that it's stupid or
yeah,
wrong,
exactly right. And that truly is the value of courage, right? Stop me or tell me. Have the courage to be bold. That I think is just the epitome. That is the embodiment of that value.
Yeah. And again, like with the other part of saying no, the more that we do it, the more that culture is acceptable. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, you can go up to the general. Now, always respectfully, okay? Don't go up to the general and say,
right?
Hey, you're looking really stupid, General. That's not going to, no, I don't think that's going to work very far.
And you hit it, Chief, right? Culture doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
We're a service that's just 4 years old, right? And it's about cultivating that culture. It's about growing it, right? It's about fostering it. Right. And so that goes into the culture of saying no, not only as you talked about, right? Harmonizing, balancing that home life, homework balance, but in harmonizing the culture that we're trying to build in our services, right? For you, where you came from as an airman, where I came from as an airman, and now what we're cultivating in the Space Force.
Yes. Yeah. We've got a couple more minutes, Chief. What good advice can you give a brand new chief walking in, just put on the stripe, and some good advice, male or female?
Man, I don't discriminate. That's the great part, right? Because our stripe does not say whether you're male or female. It doesn't say whether you're guard or reserve. It doesn't say any of that, and that's the powerful part of the stripes that we get to wear, right? That's really cool. There's a little bit of advice that I have, and right, I'm digital. I've embraced my digitalness as a guardian. And so I carry notes because I only have so much room for so many little penguins on my iceberg. My biggest thing, as I love to tell folks, is right to optimize your environment. Leave it better than how you found it. And I'm not saying that the chief before you left you a messy speech, or left you a messy environment, or left you something bad. But there's always room for improvement, right? There's always room to leave it better than how you found it. The mission, the team, the organization, the people, yourself. How are you investing not only in your team as a chief, right? Because there's no E10. That's the beautiful part of the stripes that we get to wear. There is no E10. And if there's a chief that tell you that there is, man, they shouldn't be wearing these stripes, and they shouldn't be in our formations. Period. That's my personal opinion. Yeah. Right. And then how are you investing in yourself? Because we can continue to grow as chiefs. And I'm learning that right now, especially as I step into this new role as a field comm chief, right? I need to be investing in myself because I have others that I need to bring up behind me. That is really critically important. So optimize your environment. I ask that all of our chiefs be open-minded, right? To the new, to the unsolved, to the unknown, from the operations, the teams that they're about to lead, to the leadership opportunities that are going to be, and challenges that are going to be presented to them, to taking care of the people and the things. That I think is important. I'm not saying be a cheerleader, because that's not what chiefs are about. We're not about out there telling people your hair's jacked, your uniform's jacked, right? Chiefs, we can be cheerleaders, but we need to be optimistic about how we lead and what we do. And I think that being optimistic is infectious, right? It's a force multiplier. The lead singer of Black Flag, Henry Rollins, says that optimism, right? It's heavy, it wears heavy boots, and it's loud. And you'd be surprised, right, on how loud optimism can really be in the environment as a force multiplier when you employ it. And lastly, what I would say is take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be presented to them. Take advantage of the open doors, of some open windows, if they have to kick a few down or build a few of their own. That is an incredibly powerful thing to be handed a set of chief stripes. When I was handed mine by now retired CSO #1, Chief of Space Operations, General John J. Raymond, he handed my stripes to me at my promotion release party and said, use these for good. And using them for good for me was incredible. When he told me that, incredibly powerful because he said, I'm the only one that can take them away from you. So, right, it forced me to think about how I am employing my stripes and my position, my influence to leave it better than how I found it. So that would be my advice to my fellow chiefs.
I have one question, Chief. Where do I sign up? I'll go dye my hair. I may not be able to...
I may have learned a little bit about how to coin some good phrases from a ruggedly handsome chief that have been mentoring and pouring into me for quite a few years, Chief.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Right.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the program, and most importantly for being who you are. That I can still remember that first time that we met, and one of my first thoughts after what you're yelling at me was this person is going to be a chief one day. In that moment I said, this is it, because you recognize that. I think you've already done that with others as well, but I was so proud to hear that you had gone up the chain and done all the things that you have been doing, and it's not stopping. You're still doing some great stuff. So keep doing that. Don't let anybody stop you. And like I said, if anybody messes with you, hermanita, you just let me know, because either I'll go take care of it, or I know all the vatos around. We'll take care of it.
Hey, man, I know a few vatos también, Chief. So thank you so much for letting me spend a few minutes with you. I greatly appreciate our time together.
You take care of yourself. You take care of your people and your family especially, and God bless you.
Awesome, Chief. You too. Sempre Supra.